All
I
right, I'll do it.
think we are
Good.
live.
Well,
Can you hear?
maybe good. I don't know, Jim. I'm for some
Gotcha.
reason.
Well, it's
Your live
it seems
stream
like
shut down unexpectedly.
that's interesting. Are we on live right now?
Well, we are now. It
Okay.
says we are. It's counting.
Okay, that's good. Sorry, guys. Anybody's
Okay.
listening? We're working through some technical
Maybe
difficulties.
what happened, I think what might have me.
You're going in and out.
Yeah. I don't know. I goofed with some settings trying to improve my video performance. Maybe I should just join his via voice.
Okay. It sounded like
Can
I don't know,
you?
I'm looking at the video and it's kind of like you're going in and out a little bit, or doing kind of that Mr. Roboto thing.
Right. Okay. How's the voice doing?
The voice right now is fine.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll try not to move too much.
Okay.
So it'll be a fixed picture.
Okay.
All right. Nobody's joined us yet, which is odd.
Yeah. But I just checked on Facebook and I do see that we have actually I see 3 people.
There's 3 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Dale, where we want to start tonight? We're done with how many weeks now? Is it 5 weeks or 6 weeks? 5 weeks, right?
Yeah, somewhere in that 5 weeks. Yeah. Yeah, we're
I think this
near the
right here is week
midpoint
6
of the regular season. Yeah. And most teams are in conference play now. My guess is all teams are in their conference play now.
There's some teams that have, like, from week 7 to week 11 that play 5 conference games. So some might have a non-conference game this week, but not many.
Mm-hmm.
But
right.
Anyway,
I think
I'll be honest with you, Dale.
Some teams started their conference schedule last week.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I've seen more unpredictability this year than in the previous seasons, and I see a lot of parity in my area, and I think you have a certain level of parity in the greater Charlotte-Mecklenburg area. I mean, there's probably 3 or 4 really good teams in your area that have the potential to go to the 4A state championship. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. Yes. I don't know that this is going to be a year of but there is a lot of parity in the area, without question. Yes.
Now, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago when Butler beat Weddington. How much did that surprise you?
Well, I put Weddington in that game. I figured it was a game, and it was. And Butler pulled the win out. So a surprise it's only a mild surprise. It is a surprise because I did feel like Weddington, might be a little better. But it turns out Butler's a lot better than I think we give them credit for. So,
I think a lot of people were measuring, not shocked, but just a little bit surprised. I got you. I think a lot of people were
Right.
shocked the first week of the season or second week of the season, whatever it was, when Rolesville beat Butler, and everybody
Yeah.
was like, "Gosh, that wasn't even on my radar." And we found out that Rolesville is a really good team. I mean, a very good team. They're, I think they lost to Grimsley like by 13 points or something like that. And right now, I have Grimsley as the best team in the state, but I think Rolesville is
Right.
really good, really solid.
And Jim, in a game, you really don't know all the circumstances. And I'm not taking anything away from Roseville. Excellent win. But there may be some situations that we don't know about as well.
Right.
That's the thing about high school is there is a touch of unpredictability because they're kids and how certain things can impact and change. How a team may play one week versus every other week. Uh, the biggest thing I got out of that game is that Roseville must be a very good team.
Right.
Uh, because no matter what, Butler, I'm sure, played a good game. Maybe they didn't play their best game that they could play, but they played a very good football game because they're a very well coached team. So, in the end, what you come away from on that, I think, is more of a positive for Rolesville than it is a negative for Butler. And Butler's redeemed themselves with the win over Weddington,
Oh,
which even adds more credibility to the Rolesville win. So that's
which
how I
gives
view
even
it.
more credibility to Grimsley for beating Rolesville. So
Exactly.
it's a
Exactly.
it's a pyramid on that. One thing I'll say though, at the very beginning of the season, there's even more unpredictability. I mean, your first day of practice is what, August 1st. You have 16 or 17 days before that. Not all those days you're working out. You're not going to be working out on Sunday. A lot of at least no official practice on Sunday. A lot of these
No,
teams
yeah.
at the very beginning of the year, when they're really raw and talented, sometimes it doesn't equate to wins until later on in the season when they get more fundamentally sound. Teams that stress the fundamentals, the coaches that really stress the fundamentals, they can win an extra game or two at the end of the season. They might not be as talented, but if they have the fundamentals straightened out, they're really in good shape. I'll give you a perfect example. Year after year, Charlotte Catholic, one of the best
Hmm.
fundamentally sound teams. Weddington, one of the most fundamentally sound teams over several different coaches. So,
Exactly. And your point back to about August 1, what many teams do the week before is they have what they call a mini camp. And uh, prior to the mini camp, they've just been doing 7-on-7s, really, and lifting. Kids go lift and they do 7-on-7s. But then at the mini camp, they start doing, if you've ever been to a football camp, they kind of do the things that you run through in a football camp. Of course, no pads still. They're not allowed that until after so many days of official practice can they throw pads on. But your point about teams like Catholic and Weddington, you usually see them if they've if they're having to reload. Um, you'll usually see that it takes about 3 games for things to start sinking for everyone. Everyone knows what they're supposed to do and execute, but actually getting that game experience, et cetera, and getting everything lined up, you can really see improvement around that third week. And that's true with most teams. Uh, and if teams aren't seeing improvement over those first 3 games, um, that you point to coaching on that. It may not be improvement in wins, but improvement of execution. So
right.
we're well past that point now. All the good teams are executing now, so they're
Right.
all in their execution phase.
And right now, I think one of the biggest things we look out for is the season-ending injuries. And I know we've had several teams. I think just about every team in the state has had a player that's out for the season because of something, a knee or an
Right.
arm or a shoulder or ankle or whatever, and they're out for the season. And that's a hard pill to swallow for those kids, but also it not only hurts your team for when you lose a starter, but it also hurts your bench because that's one other person that would be on the bench as a backup is now starting. Who's going to back up the backup? It opens up a can of worms.
Yeah, Jim, that's one thing I don't think people take into account when you look at a team. Because you're usually judging based on the starters and the say the top 22 kids, something like that. It's 22, 25 kids. That's what you're basing your analysis of the team on. But you really need to have depth down to 30, probably about 30 kids of the same or similar caliber to be able to sustain injuries and roll a player into a starting role. Uh, so when you talk to coaches, they'll and if they're honest, they'll tell you about what they call really be 22. It might be as low as 17 to 19 that they would consider to be top tier players, and then it kind of scales down from there. But they want to be in that 25 to 30 range. Um, so injuries obviously dig into that, but hopefully you have that to dig into. Um,
Right.
so development. I was had a conversation with Sam Griner the other day and talking about depth and playing kids, and I told him that it'll be really good when you get to the point that you've got young juniors that play on JV so that they can get experience for their varsity season. That was something Tommy Knotts did very well, was players develop by playing. And being on varsity and sitting on the bench is not developing. Um, Playing a JV game gets you some more experience, game experience. The speed is different, but at least you're playing and you're executing. Uh, so that's the next thing in that whole depth thing, Jim, is how good of a JV you've got. But
Right.
that's a good point you bring up, and we're starting to see injuries. I'm sure there's been injuries since before the season, but
Oh, sure.
by this time, every team's impacted by at least one player, as you say, maybe more.
And
And
you also
you,
got academics you have to throw in there. Also, you got kids that are now in school and sometimes they're not doing what they need to in the classroom. Sometimes there's other issues that goes to behavioral issues that either in the
right.
classroom or actually on the program that's a bad representative of the program and the kids got to be disciplined because of it.
Well, the good thing is the discipline.
Yeah.
The bad thing is not discipline when you should. Uh, you've got to help. Part of that team building is holding people accountable and making them own the responsibilities that they're not, upholding. So discipline, I think, is real key. I see we got two questions, and what I want to say is to Chris, when we get to the rankings, and we'll do that relatively quickly, we'll talk about that 1A. That's the first thing we get into. Jim, I thought before I did that, we went to games Friday night, and I went to the Mallard Creek West Charlotte game. And let me tell you something. You couldn't have asked for a much better football game. West Charlotte showed a lot of poise, scored on the first play of the game. A little flick to the halfback, who then threw I'm not going to call it a strike, but he got it was a pretty amazing. He threw the ball while his feet were still moving, and it arched a lot, but the kid caught it and sprinted in for a touchdown. In that game, Jim, in the fourth quarter, Mallard Creek had 3 chances to score. West Charlotte didn't really do anything in the fourth quarter on offense. So they had, they had chances, but the reality is they did not have chances. Mallard Creek was on the West Charlotte side of the field and down in or near the red zone. So what happened? We had a blocked field goal. That field goal would have put Mallard Creek up by 1 point. The score was 17-15 at the time. And then we had a pass interception in the end zone. And really that interception, the only great play that they made on defense was that the kid caught the ball. It was a poorly thrown ball. A flag route was thrown and the receiver ran a post. So there was a good bit of separation between where the ball went and where the receiver was at. And the defender was able to get to the ball. And then finally, they had first and goal. And West Charlotte held. On fourth down, the ball was inside the 1. Almost like at the 1.5 foot yard line, somewhere in that range, really, really close, and penalty. So they moved the ball, and I'm going to tell you, when I looked at the actually, it was less than 1.5 yard line, because when it moved, it's half the distance. As you look down the line, I told the box man, I was standing there beside him. I said, "Man, it looks like that ball's touching the goal line." He said, "It does. That nose is like right on it." So the ball was literally as close to the goal line as you could get. And not be a score. And West Charlotte held on that. So 4 downs inside the 5. Pretty impressive. Very, very impressive performance by West Charlotte. So now we've got a 3A team knocking heads with one of the better 4A teams in the state. And taking them down. So look out for, as we say, the Lions. Go Lions. And who can anybody beat Crest in 3A? We're going to talk about that. But the team I just talked about, West Charlotte, is really they got a special season going right now.
I think there's some.
What
teams
did you
in
see
3A.
Friday?
Well, my household, we were basically doing hospice care for a 15-year-old cat. And the cat took a turn for the worse. And then, of all things, the cat died right after midnight on Sunday night.
I'm sorry.
So I stood home because I didn't know if I was going to have to get out a shovel or what. But
right, I understand.
I did watch on live streamed. It was Wakefield versus Broughton, And for most of the game, Broughton pretty much controlled the tempo and everything. They had I think one time they had a 16-point lead. And then they got a
Mm-hmm.
little bit sloppy. Weddington capitalized. And with 20 seconds left, Weddington scores a touchdown, and they end up holding and winning that game. But the whole game, for the most part,
Right.
Broughton was clearly the better team. And it pretty much shows you that whoever's the better team doesn't always win.
Right. Right. Exactly. Whoever's the better. So the way that I look at it is, in the end, the better team did win, but maybe the better team through most of the game did not. Um, you know, just like that West Charlotte game, West Charlotte looked clearly like the better team in the first half, but in the second half, not so much. It was looked to be fairly even. Like we had two even teams, and Mallard Creek pulled it back close, and so it was kind of looking like, no, both of these are about the same. And then, bam, that goal line stand puts, I think, the kind of the icing on that. They were the better team, but just barely. And there were points in that game that Mallard Creek was the better team. So always, uh, I don't know. It's interesting to look at the ebb and flow of games like that, and the game that you
Yeah.
saw, that you see these things happen, and then the other team just finds a way. Uh,
It's interesting. I always look at when it comes to the flow, look at the trenches. The team that might be dominating the first half, they might get tired. And by the second half, they're not no longer dominating. They actually might be a little bit inferior. And that's what I saw this
mhm,
last Friday. I saw a Broughton team that had clearly the better offensive line, the better defensive line, and both lines
right.
started getting a little bit tired. Fatigue came in, complacency to a certain level. You didn't see quite the same effort, and the Weddington kids were all coached up, and that's what happens.
Exactly. Oh man, I gotta put this up. Ronald's talking my language. Food. The best hot dogs, and they got that good slaw. I'm gonna tell you guys something. I've been making a number of trips out to California working on a project, and I've had this at a couple of different places, and it's a slaw. And I don't think I've ever had anything quite like it here, but it's an apple cider coleslaw, and man, it was that good. Um, I like a good coleslaw, and I love to amp my coleslaw up that I make for my hot dogs. I usually dash Frank's in with my mayo, and uh, maybe some Worcester sauce, and but that's one of the things I used to love about going to games, Jim, was to find out what the food was like. What's the stadium food like? I kind of hate it because this Friday night, West Charlotte and West Mecklenburg are playing. That's an old time rival, and West Charlotte's going to be cooking the fish. They do fish fries. Where they used to be real famous for fish fries, and so they're bringing those back. So they'll be cooking fish Friday night, but I'm not going to that game. Um, Hot dogs or good burgers, or finding good food at a stadium is or used to be a treat. I haven't done it in a few years.
I'd say the worst experience I had at a high school football game, I think it was last year, either last year or the year before. I went up to Yanceyville and watched Bartlett Yancey play Northmore, and
Hmm.
I got there about 40 minutes early because I wanted to go eat. I always like eating in the ballpark, and the vendor didn't show up. they didn't do it inside the house. They actually got vendors. The vendor didn't show up
Right.
until about the mid second quarter. And I mean, that was enough to make me mad. I mean, I was like, come on, guys. You know what's going on. And what it was, I couldn't get enough help. And instead of calling the school about it, they just came in about an hour and 15 minutes late. And then they had to, I mean, they got in there and you had to wait and warm things up and get everything set up, correctly. And have people, this guy was telling story after story. And instead of working and doing what he needs to, I was like, dude, just get your job done here.
Dude, I want that hot dog. Yeah. Let's move it.
I mean, give me a microwave, give me the wiener, and I'll cook it myself. I don't care.
I last year, Independence High School, they had some great hamburgers. Man, those were good. Stadium hamburgers they were making there. I had a hot dog at Crest the last time I was at Crest, but I unfortunately I don't remember if it was the best hot dog. I can't say if it's the best hot dog in Cleveland County because it's the only. I've been to all the schools many times, but Crest is the only place I've had a hot dog. Kings Mountain, I've never gotten anything. Burns, Shelby. I just go to the game, and usually I try to go to Red Bridges if I'm, not for Kings Mountain, but if I'm going to go to Crest or Shelby or Burns, I'll try to go to Red Bridges. Get there early and go there. Have you ever been to Red Bridges, Jim?
I have not.
Best barbecue in North Carolina, I think. Yes, I know Ronald might say Alton Bridges, but Austin's good too. It's down near the hospital, but Red Bridges is on 74. It's real easy to find. They back several years ago, there was a bracket during the basketball. They did this barbecue bracket thing, just like basketball, and had barbecue places from all over the country. And I don't agree with this, but Red Bridges, without question, is one of the best barbecue places. But I've eaten barbecue lots of places across the country, and I know where better barbecue is. But they weren't in the challenge for some reason. And some of the people that were in the challenge that were well known, I'm like, I've eaten there. They're not worthy of being in the semifinals. But if you get a chance, Jim, go to Cleveland County, go to Red Bridges Barbecue. It's they do a Lexington style sauce, a Piedmont style sauce.
Right.
They do it right. They set you a little pitcher of tea down, so it'll probably fill 2 to 3 glasses. It's not a big pitcher; it's a little personal size pitcher. That's what they do. They bring you that pitcher out and set it down, and their banana pudding is very good. I love Red Bridges. So anyway, you want to go ahead and go down your rankings, and we can start on that, and then we can come back and do some other talk.
Yeah, tell you what, let's do. Let me get to my rankings and have to find it here.
I was hoping that Jeff and Shane would join tonight. I want to get Shane involved in some manner. And we didn't hear from Jeff. So
he said he had to go. He's going to a baseball game.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He was working last year at the Crawdads, I think, at Gastonia.
Is my screen?
All right, so
got it.
There you go. It came up.
All right, so we'll start out with the 1A East. Number 1, Tarboro. Number 2 through 8. I don't care. You can pick whatever team. You can pick Tarboro's JV. You can pick up Tarboro's middle school.
Right.
You can pick up the Tarboro preschool kids. I don't care. Tarboro is the team to beat in the East.
Nobody is going to beat Tarboro. That's my call. Been the call since week 1, and it's staying that way for me.
So
sorry, East.
Let's go to the West, which is a lot different to me. A lot different.
Yes.
Mount Airy is better, just a little bit better than Robbinsville. That being said, Robbinsville can beat Mount Airy. Mitchell is a team that you can't sleep on. Eastern Randolph, I know they lost a game to Eastern Alamance at the beginning of the season, but Eastern Alamance is a 3A school. Eastern Alamance beat Reedsville, which is one of the best 2A schools, so no shame in that loss. Swain County's having a season right now. They're best Swain County I've seen in years.
Right.
And then Thomasville, they dropped a little bit in the rankings, but they lost to Salisbury 12-6, which kind of shows me two different things. Salisbury is a 2A school. Thomasville is a 1A school. Salisbury is a little bit overhyped. I've seen them play. Those kids don't look like they're having much fun, to be honest with you. Also, I don't think they have the raw athleticism that everybody's giving them credit for. Great coaching, great coach team though. That Salisbury coaching is what's keeping them in the lead eights. But after that, it's a little bit questionable.
And Jim, I thought Thomasville would win that game, so I'm a little surprised, not overly surprised, but I'm mildly surprised that Thomasville did not win that ball game. Because I was thinking that's how good Thomasville is, that they could beat a good Salisbury team. But
that Salisbury defense is really good, and for the most part, they're very fundamentally sound. Salisbury offense is not that good, so to me, that game was the tempo was probably dictated more by Salisbury than Thomasville. I thought it was going to be a pretty even game myself. And then after that, you got Drawn at 7 and Murphy at 8. Drawn, they keep on winning. They They took Owen to the woodshed and beat them up quite a bit. I think it was 38-0. And Murphy keeps on winning.
The War Horses, right?
Yeah, War Horses for Owen. That's right.
Yeah.
So
Drawn is looking pretty good this year. I agree with your rankings. I also agree that Robbinsville can give Mount Airy again. It's going to be a tough bracket to come out of, quite honestly. I mean, it's going to, the playoffs are going to be tough in the West. That's top to bottom. That's a pretty solid. Overwhelmingly solid compared to the East.
I got to give South Davison a shout out. They played North Rowan, North Rowan should be, before this last week, was in the honorable mentions in the 1A West. And South Davison lost to North Rowan 21-14. And it used to be with South Davison, a really good 1A team would have a running clock by halftime. South Davison they got more numbers. The kids are being coached up. You got to give a shout out to that whole program. I know they won several games this year. So let's go to the 2A East. And right now, Clinton to me is a strong number one. East Duplin, we'll find out how good East Duplin is before too long. East Duplin just beat James Keenan, I think 28-7. But Clinton's got two really powerful wins. They beat Whiteville, I believe it was like 58-22. And they beat Wallace Rose Hill by about 25 points or so. So Clinton right now is showing the most to me. East Duplin is the second. Whiteville, Wallace Rose Hill, those teams are still really good. Well, I know Wallace Rose Hill's, they've lost 3 games, but not many 2A teams are going to beat Clinton, beat Hoggard, and beat Havelock. Maybe just a half dozen at most would even go 1 and 2 with those 3 teams. 5 through 8's a little bit of a crapshoot, to be honest with you. I could. I think Hertford County is probably the best of the rest. Northeastern,
Mm-hmm.
they have a great offense. If they could play defense, they'd be a lot. Might be in the crack the top four, but
Did you drop West Craven?
West Craven was previously dropped and they've been re-added.
Okay.
I think they're a team to look out for.
Right.
Now the 2A West, it's I like Monroe quite a bit.
I do too.
Monroe's just a really good team. I like Forest
I've
Hills.
seen Monroe, so I saw them play West Charlotte. That's a very good 2A team.
Right.
Very fast, very athletic. Uh, I think that's a solid team, and there's some other good teams there, but that's the leader right now in my book in the 2A West.
In Forest Hills, we're going to find out a little bit more about them. They play North Stanley this weekend or this Friday, and I think Forest Hill will win by about 4 touchdowns. But if North Stanley gives them any type of game, I might reassess. Now, if they win 42-0 against North Stanley, I'll have to say they're a very good team. North Stanley is a little bit better than average 2A school.
Right.
They've done pretty good this year. Their only loss was to Western Alamance, and they lost by like 9 points, and that was at Western. But Monroe or Forest Hills should win that game by several scores. Reidsville, they lost to Eastern Alamance. That was, I think, a few weeks ago. But Reidsville is a really good team. They had a coaching change. The father, Jimmy T, gave it to his son. And we'll see how Reidsville progresses as the season goes. I think they're going to be really solid.
Mm-hmm.
Salisbury, Burns, you could flip those two, to be honest with you. I put Salisbury at 4 and Burns at 5. I think it was more adders.
To be a contrarian, I would put Burns, but it's not an arguable thing.
Yeah,
they're pretty close with each other.
I agree. It's kind of, well, I want to learn just a little bit more about both teams.
Right.
6 Bunker Hill. I think there's a gap between Burns and Bunker Hill, and West Lincoln at 7. I think West Lincoln, it might be one of the biggest pleasant surprises of the season. I know some of our colleagues had West Lincoln finish 8th in the 8-team conference,
right.
Or 7th, one of those, and they're really good. I mean, they're a solid team, and I think I had West Lincoln like 3rd or 4th in the preseason. I think it was 4th. I had them.
Hopefully, Carrie's watching. We need to get her on again,
right? Because West Lincoln, Lincolnton, and Maiden, Bunker Hill. I mean, there's some good teams in that conference. So.
Right, I agree.
And then 8's got Shelby. Shelby, they've lost 3 games. Everybody knows that. So they lost to Kings Mountain. They lost to Shelby. They lost to AC Reynolds. But they really didn't get blown out, or they lost to not Shelby. They lost to Crest, Kings Mountain, and AC Reynolds. But they really didn't get blown out by any of those games. They're a team to watch. And
yeah, they're in 2A. They're a team to watch. You got to remember those teams are good. The teams they've lost to are very good upper classification teams. So not a bad look for Shelby, though they've lost. The record doesn't look good, but then if you understand who they've played, you can see that they will be trouble in 2A and will not be an easy out, I think, for most teams. We'll see if they can play. I don't know if they can play with a Monroe, but the time will tell.
Now with 3A East, I still have 71st number 1 and Northern Nash number 2. Scotland's moved up to 3. I'm gonna be honest with you. You could put all three teams' names in a hat and select them 1, 2, 3 in any order. I thought at the
Right.
beginning of the season, 71st was head and heels over both teams, and they've met my expectations. But Northern Nash and Scotland has exceeded my expectations. Keep an eye on them. I think there's a little bit of a separation between Scotland and Havelock, and Scotland and Eastern Alamance, Southern Alamance. Eastern Alamance, Southern Alamance. You can pick one or the other for 5 and 6. Jacksonville, Southern Nash, really, really good squad. So
Yeah. So I think the roads are going to go through Fayetteville and Scotland counties.
yeah, it's hard not to go against that. It's
yeah. I mean, there's other good teams there, but Scotland, 71st is playing phenomenally good, and Scotland is representing very well right now. They will be a tough out in their conference, let alone when they come into play. I think they'll win their conference, which is not a particularly easy conference, though. Richmond's not performing well.
But you got Pinecrest, you got Lee County.
Yeah,
and I mean
it's still a tough. It's still a very tough conference.
Most definitely. So now the one thing I'll mention here, Southern Nash 71st. I don't think 71st wants to play a team like Southern Nash that has that. At least they were playing the double wing. They're heavily relying on a very good running game.
Right.
Teams like that might give 71st a new look. It might be hard to adapt, but we shall see. Now 3A West,
and so Southern Nash does run a double wing.
They used to, at least. I think they have the same coach, and historically they might have 5,000 yards rushing and maybe 400 yards passing. And
right.
Great coach, though. I remember I went over there I think Southern Nash was playing Green Hope about 5 years ago, and saw their coach, and their coach was a really nice guy, and he said, "Can I speak to you a little bit?" And I said, "Sure." And he says, "Well, just want to let you know, one of my players' brothers got seriously injured in a car accident coming up here," and asked me what I know about the Duke University Hospital, and will he be in good hands and everything. And you could tell the guy really cared more about his player's brother than he did about the game. And I said, if you're going to get hurt or sick, this is a great place to be. I mean, where I live, you got UNC Chapel Hill, you got Wake Med, you got Duke. I mean, this great hands.
Without question. Two things. Just anybody, we have some listeners, and if you're not familiar with the double wing, it's an offense that is designed to put a lot of players at the point of attack, and put a running back, a guy with the ball in his hands, basically, behind all those people. And you can amass a lot of yards. Clover ran the double wing for many years, and Coach Martin brought that double wing to South Mecklenburg, and they ran it at South Mecklenburg for a while he was coaching at South Meck. Now he's at Catawba Ridge, I believe. He's still there. But anyway, double wing's an interesting offense to watch, but if you see 4 to 5 passes in the game, that's a lot, typically.
It's usually the passes are like with a minute left in each half. Last year I saw Northmore, they run the double wing, at least last year they did. And they did a lot of 2 tight end formations. So you had 5 offensive linemen, tight end on both sides. You had the wings, had the quarterback. He had a running back, and it was a lot of fun. It was fun to watch that the team matriculate, as what Hank Stram would say, down the field.
Yeah,
it is a if it's run to perfection, you can keep your defense off the field for a long time.
it's a fun offense if you pay attention to it. If you like lineman movement, because you got a lot of pulling, and again, it's you're going to pick a point of attack, and then you just start sending bodies to that point of attack, basically. Jim, I just thought I threw up. I don't know if you can see it, but I had to make a comment about this. Now we're talking Eastern style barbecue. That must have been when we were talking about Scotland
Right.
and then through Fayetteville. But quite honestly, that's kind of Eastern. But you really, to get the good Eastern, you got to go on up 95 up into the Wilson Rocky Mountain.
Yes, east of
Greenville.
East of I-95. Rocky Mountain.
Yeah,
Can
exactly.
get you a little bit. Greenville, Wilson. You get to northeastern North Carolina. Oh my gosh, some really good eastern.
Wilson used to have the best barbecue in North Carolina when Bill Ellis was operating, because he not only had the barbecue joint, he raised the pigs that he used. So he controlled the quality of the pig itself.
What you feed it.
So yeah, what you feed it and how what they breed with, how the breeding takes place and all. So he had phenomenal barbecue. I really hated when when they shut down. That was my favorite place. I make a nice Eastern style. The thing about Eastern, if people don't know what is the difference in Eastern and say Piedmont style barbecue, the first thing is that in Eastern they use the whole pig. They take the whole hog and they chop it up together. That's what sets Eastern apart from other parts, because in the other parts they typically use Boston butts, shoulders and hams. They don't use the whole hog. They just use mainly the shoulder. So that's the one difference, the big difference. The sauce is another difference. And I'll get off this real quick, but Eastern is just vinegar and spices, whereas Piedmont is vinegar, spices, brown sugar, and a little bit of ketchup. So it's a sweet and spicy. I prefer the Piedmont sauce myself. I love the Eastern sauces, but I really prefer that. I like that sweet and tangy and spicy all together. So when I make sauce, I make a Piedmont sauce. I make an Eastern sauce as well, but then I turn my Eastern sauce into a Piedmont sauce by adding the other ingredients that makes it a Piedmont sauce.
Let me ask you this: do you have any Heinz 57 at your house?
No,
or
I do not.
What's the other A1 sauce? You ever use A1?
No. So I never put anything on steaks.
Okay.
I just straight up with my steaks. I season it and that's it. Salt, pepper. Go ahead.
Try using, if you do some Eastern style sauce, for every 1 cup of every 4 cups of the actual vinegar sauce, put a cup of A1 steak sauce in it and mix it up together. Believe it or not, it's really good.
I'll try it. I'll give it a try. Eating barbecue across the country, and you know how much of a barbecue fanatic I am. I've eaten all kinds of sauces, and I usually try to eat whatever, get the sauce or whatever is local for that, area, so I can taste it the way that uh, those people eat it. I hopefully can get my barbecue and the sauce separate so I can taste the meat before I put any sauce on it. But I'll try that, Jim. It sounds interesting. I'm not sure what kind of flavor that would deliver, but I want to give it a try.
It's an
Um,
interesting flavor. It has a little bit of sweetness to it that takes
uh-huh.
care of some of the stuff. I mean, I like some sweetness to it also. I'm more
Well,
of
see,
a
that's why I like. I'm sorry. Go
I'm
ahead.
more of a Western style barbecue fan anyway. Um,
So you like a thick
oh, I
sauce?
do. I love a thick sauce. I love the
Okay,
more Western Piedmont. So,
gotcha.
talking about Western Piedmont, let's go to the 3A. And, the top three, or actually the top four: Dudley, Crest, West Charlotte, Kings Mountain. I mean,
Hmm.
that is just a great lineup of teams right there, those top four. And
Exactly.
then you have J.M. Robinson, who is phenomenal. South Point,
Hmm.
I got them at six, and they're probably the third best team in their conference. You know, they might beat Kings Mountain, they might beat Crest, but I mean, if you right now, I think those three teams play. I think it would be Crest, Kings Mountain, and South Point. I mean, somebody has to be one, somebody has to be two, and someone has to be three. But
Right. Exactly.
um, I I think a lot of people I know from listening to Jeff last week saying that South Point has to be in the top five. I think a lot of people are underestimating how good J.M. Robinson is. They've just they're
Hmm.
probably going to run the table. This is a team that was 2A last year. They're now playing 3A, and I mean they beat teams like A.L. Brown's. They're just marching down the squad. I know A.L. Brown is not nearly the team they used to be, but A.L. Brown's still a pretty darn good team. I mean, last time I checked, A.L. Brown's 4A too. Um,
Right. So it's still at least a good win.
yeah,
It may not be a great win like it would have been in the '90s or even in the um, early 2000s.
right.
But yeah, it's JMR is a team to be watching. Out of that top, I just keep seeing what West Charlotte's doing, and man, that's a tough top three right there, top four
Oh
actually.
yeah,
You, I've always been a fan of Kings Mountain personally. Of the Cleveland County teams, Kings Mountain has been more my personal favorite, but it's hard to not love Cleveland County football because again, we say it all the time and say it again, best football in the
oh yeah.
state.
And
I
then
like your I like your number seven team.
yeah, and Joe Glass last week, I said I'd take East Lincoln, but I also knew that I even said it on the air. I said this is something that Joe Glass would love to hear because he will tell his team to make me eat those words. And I got a message from Joe Glass that basically said thank you very much. And he was saying as a compliment. He's
Right.
just a great guy. So
Yeah, Bob just posted Coach Joe Glass is happy when you pick against him. That's a good win. That is a very, very good win. Um, and all championships come through Belmont. I don't know about that this year. Um, Belmont will play a factor in it, but I don't know. I mean, Kings Mountain, Crest, West Charlotte. Uh, I would say it's going to go. You're going to have to get by Crest. That's my thought.
yeah,
I'm a big fan of West Charlotte, and I think West Charlotte has a tremendous opportunity to win 3A. I think West Charlotte has an opportunity to go undefeated. And yes, that means beating Huff and beating Chambers. Uh, they will be in the Charlotte Observer pick'ems, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I'll be picking them. So that's how good I think they are. But I still think Crest is a tremendously good football team as well. So for me, Jim, I think you got it right with your top teams. Although I do believe Crest, I place Crest number one myself.
Gotcha. Then I have West Henderson at
Dudley,
number 8, and I think they're going to run the
yeah,
table.
yeah. So that's a good looking. You look at that. That's a good looking. Again, just like the 1A West
It's a lot of good teams.
and the 2A West. The West is just solid top to bottom
Right.
in their classifications this year. It's not to say they're going to win all 4 championships because teams like Tarboro are still maybe the best team, like in 1A. But gosh, the West is so hard to get through. Now let you take it back
Well, I
over.
was going to say about to our friend Ronald about South Point. If you ask Tommy Wilson, then you know who Tommy Wilson is, no doubt. He'll tell you that South
Yeah,
Point will beat Crest by 42-0, and it's funny because he's a huge South Point fan, but some of the South Point fans are like, Tommy, let's don't poke the eye in the bear, let's keep it a little bit more
right.
on the down low.
So Bob says West Charlotte appears to be the team to beat. Um, Honestly, I think they got a good shot at winning it, Bob. But I think those top 4 teams are all real close to each other. And the thing is you got to play one and the other, and that's it's a tough playoff
And that's
bracket.
where the RPIs come into play too.
Yeah,
Because I want to tell you right now, it's where would you rather play? Would you rather play at Dudley or at Crest or West Charlotte or Kings Mountain? Uh,
right.
if you get to Kings Mountain into the regional championship, are you going to feel better about playing them than maybe Dudley or Crest? Kings Mountain is there might be a mental. You have to break through some mental barriers every so often. Kings Mountain has trouble winning that final game. That final. And I don't believe in
They
that to be a huge issue. But after a while, when it happens, 7, 8 years or so,
yeah.
it's hard not to think about it. I think it's more with the coaching than it is with the kids. They probably block that stuff out. Or we as adults we try to overanalyze things. So
Well, the problem with that, Jim, is that the kids probably don't think about it until someone says, "All right, so you're going into the week of the regional or the semis," and then people start saying, we last year we didn't get, we hadn't gotten any further than this. This is the furthest we've gotten in so long, and blah blah blah. Those things are not the right things, I think, to be
no,
saying. I don't think you mentioned that at all about what has happened in the past, as because you help build those hurdles that they're mentally trying to get over. And every team has faced these kinds of things. I remember Butler back in the 2000s when Indy was going through its run. Butler was a very good football team and gave Indy some very good games, but they couldn't beat them. And then finally, they beat them, and then they lost to them in the playoffs. But they kind of finally bridged that mental thing, if you will. And once they did, you saw a Butler team elevate itself. Once they got that win over Indy. So for some reason, it does play in, but I think it plays in because people bring it up too much.
right.
So anyway, Bob, I think I think 3A West is tough. Period. Um,
So with
okay.
4A East, it's. I'll be honest with you, the top six teams, you could make a, you could pretty much make a argument for each one of those teams. The team,
Hmm.
if I had to pick a team that had the highest ceiling right now, it would be hard. It'd probably be between Roswell, Cleveland, and Jordan. Believe it or not. Now the team with the highest
You
floor.
think you think they have the highest ceiling? You think they have a higher ceiling than Cardinal Gibbons?
Oh, I do, I do.
Okay.
I think Cardinal Gibbons has a higher floor, which means they are fundamentally sound. I mean, they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot. They're not going to make the dumb penalties. They're going to play smart ball. They're going to know how to do time clock management. They defensively they know how to tackle. Some of the teams, if you look at, trying to give you a good example of a team that will do some arm tackles ever so often when they get tired. Um,
Lots of teams
oh,
do
I
that.
was going to say Greenville Rose is a perfect example. I think it was Rose versus
Yeah.
Dudley a few years ago in the state championship game. I think the final score was like 69-50, and I saw more arms being thrown over somebody's ankles or their waist than I've ever seen before in my life. And
Hmm.
you get a lot of that where they have kind of a low floor because they're just not conditioned quite as well. But if they're, if they get conditions, they can reach that next level where their floor might go up a little bit. Pinecrest has a high floor. Uh, New Bern has a high floor. New Bern's a well coached team. I mean,
Yeah.
that team really surprised me. Uh, so it's Jordan is a interesting team because last year they got really hot at the right time of the season. And give you an idea about how good Jordan is, they lost to Rollsville by I forgot like 9 points or 10 points or something like that. And Rollsville beats Butler. So Jordan is a pretty darn good team.
Right.
After that, I'm just kind of lukewarm about Cardinal Gibbons. I just don't know how good they really are this year. We shall see. They might have some players that are injured right now that will come back and help them out. Leesville Road, I just don't know. Hoggard is a pretty darn good team, though. So, really top six, 1 through 6. Any of those teams right now, I think, could win the 4A East.
Right.
So let's go to the West. East, Forsyth, Weddington at 3 and 4. I'm tempted to flip those teams around, to be honest with you, and I might do it after a week or two, just as we get more information. But it's hard right now to pick against Grimsley, and it's hard to go against Butler at number 2.
Right. No, I agree with that.
And the rest of it, there's 2 teams in the very bottom, Morrisville and West Forsyth. Keep an eye out on both of those teams. West Forsyth have got to play East Forsyth later on in the season. I would not be surprised if West Forsyth beats East Forsyth.
So Mooresville plays Hickory Ridge this Friday night.
I think it's going to be a close game, to be honest with you. Hickory Ridge has got talent. They just
I picked Mooresville.
Yeah, I'm picking Morrisville to win that too, but
they better win it. Though I kind of like the coaching staff over at Hickory Ridge, so I kind of hated picking against them, but my gut tells me Mooresville's going to win that ball game. Hickory Ridge has got to. I'll say what I said the other night. Hickory Ridge needs to go to Napa and buy some breaks so they can slap them on the other team's offense. If they can do that, then they got an opportunity. Honestly, your 5 and 6 teams are. We're going to have to see, but those are very those are potentially very, very good football teams. Huff and Chambers. That's two.
Yeah, I like Huff a little bit more than I do Chambers.
Well, they play this Friday night. I picked Huff in the Charlotte Observer picks. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it'll be one score. It might find a way to be two scores, but I don't think it's going to find a way to be more than that. And I believe it's going to be. I'll say that the team that gets, if a team can get in the 20s in this game, that'll be your winner. Because this is or should be two very good defensive teams, and holding the score in the teens. So don't be surprised to see, a 17-14. And the thing that Huff's got going for it is their special teams. They got the best kicker in the nation on their team. So
tell you what, let's do. Let's look at the Max Preps rankings because I haven't checked them recently. Let's see here. I was looking at my North Stanley.
Yeah, I haven't looked at them this week myself. Probably going to find Grimsley's going to be one. Butler's played a pretty tough schedule, so they should be somewhere up there.
So this is 4A. Look at that. Grimsley, yeah. Butler, Rollsville, Weddington.
Yeah, so Grimsley, Butler, Rollsville, Weddington, Huff, East Forsyth, Chambers.
I disagree with this.
Yeah, I don't think so, but okay. But it's very close to what you have.
And I disagree about Watauga. I don't think Watauga's up there. Mallard Creek at 13. I'm not exactly sure about that.
You have to look at that's all based on it's okay to lose to very good teams as long as you don't get blown out. And Mallard Creek has played nothing but a tough schedule. Their schedule has been one of the toughest that you'll come across in North Carolina. Buford being one of the best teams in the nation,
right.
Top 5 team. Gaffney being one of the best teams in South Carolina.
See, that's what Crest makes me. It just really impressed me. Crest beat Gaffney.
Gaffney, yeah.
And then
exactly.
Mallard Creek lost to Gaffney. So
exactly. I think Crest is except now. It's hard to say based on that how good one is. You need to really get Crest and Mallard Creek to go against each other also. But what it does tell you is Crest is an exceptionally good football team and could play with the 4A boys. I don't think there's any question about it. But yeah, you look at that schedule. That's an exceptionally tough schedule. You look at those scores; they're not giving up points. Mm-hmm. They held, I think, Buford is number 3 in the nation or something like that. They held them to 10 points. This is an exceptional football team.
National 6. So yeah, that's a.
Yeah, so no, there's 6, okay, and that I think in one of those opinion polls, that's a power poll right there. In an opinion poll, I think they were in the top 5, but hey, power ranking top 6. I mean, they're just a good football team. So,
and like in the rest of the 4A, Holly Springs, they're good. They're really good. Newbern, Jordan, Lake Norman. Everybody's talking about Mooresville, but Lake Norman.
Yeah, Lake Norman. And I tell you, that's going to be a great game. Last game of the regular season.
And those two teams are going to fight it.
Oh, yeah. That'll be a great game to go to.
And, Independence, they're they've lost a couple games, but we'll see what happens. They were at the very end of the season. They were a lot better last year than the season they were at the beginning of last season.
So Independence plays Charlotte Catholic this week.
Right.
So
So pretty good on that. Let's look at the 3As here because kind of curious. 3As, I got Crest 1, West Charlotte 2, 71st 3, Dudley 4, Kings Mountain 5. I mean, those top 6 teams are pretty darn good. I'm looking
pretty good.
kind of
The
solid.
West is tough because as you keep going down that list there, Jim,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of good teams in the top 20. Um, it's not an easy. The West for a West playoff is just going to be brutal from the first games. It's going to be brutal for teams
They have
to make it out.
Oak Grove at 10, Robinson at 11. Let's see where South Point is. South Point number 19. West Henderson, they have a 12. I disagree with that. I think South Point's better than West Henderson, but
Well, that's just a
it's a
calculation.
calculation
There,
at this point.
right. It'll change as the games and scores come up, but
it'll become more awkward.
I agree with you. I agree with you in a ranking, in an opinion ranking. They're better than that.
Well, look at the two-way here. Clinton number 1 and Monroe number 2. Who's number 1 team in our two-way East? Clinton. Who's the number 1 team in the two-way West? Monroe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
and having seen Monroe, I'm gonna tell you guys, that is a good football team. And their coach is going to be the Shrine Bowl coach this year.
Tell you what,
Johnny Sowell.
Oh yeah, that's right. Johnny's won.
Yep.
He's won state championships in basketball, football, and I think it was a track
I think so. He's a heck of a coach, and they've got a heck of a program over there at Monroe.
And he's a Monroe grad too. On top of it all, so look at this one.
Look out for them.
Burns 6, Shelby 7. What 2 teams played the last week of the season? Burns, Shelby.
Listen, it's Cleveland County football, man.
And then this is a team that we haven't talked about, East Gaston.
We talked a little bit about last week, remember?
Yeah.
I made a point that we brought them up. They're having the best record-wise. This is their best season. And they will continue to roll, should continue to roll, let's say. I think when we looked at this last week, I think they should go 6 to 8 games.
They'll beat Cherryville pretty easily. Then they'll beat Thomas Jefferson. Yeah. But, I mean, Burns, Shelby, they'll have to wake up.
Yeah, so they'll go through 6 wins is what we saw last week. And then they got some tough ball games. They got to go through those Cleveland County teams, and then they'll end up with a win against Highland Tech. So they're probably going to. My guess is that they would lose those 2 games, unless they really are. This is a special year for them. So let's see here. We got a number of neat comments here. Best North Carolina high school quarterback ever, the GOAT, Chris Leak.
He's in the top 10.
Mike, he's top 10. Mike Epley. You know what? That kid that his dad played at Independence and he played at Myers Park, and now he's up at Chapel Hill.
Oh, Drake May.
Drake May's probably, well, not probably. I think Drake May's better than Chris Leak. But it's how do you measure? How do you measure who is better? When Joe Cox went out to the Elite 11 the year after Chris Leak won the Elite 11, and Joe Cox finished second. The other kid that went to Georgia, I can't remember that quarterback's name right now. Um, anyway, the people that ran the Elite 11, they said Joe Cox's performance at Elite 11 was better than Chris Leak's performance. See, I have a special place for Joe Cox, his senior year. Uh, Chris Leak is definitely one of the top 10, but my all-time favorite is Mike Epley. Played at Harding.
Went to
Played.
Clemson, right?
He went to Clemson. He's so he was a three-sport All-State player at Harding. He went to Clemson, starting quarterback and starting point guard, and could have played baseball as well. They wanted him to play baseball. He was drafted in high school to play baseball. Uh, Excellent ball player. That's one of the best athletes I've ever seen. Uh, he's my favorite quarterback of all time. Uh, and then he made a comment about Cress beating Gaffney. We talked about that. And thinks that North Gaston, Kings Mountain, overrated. North Gaston shocks the world on Friday.
Let's see here.
I don't know.
Pull up North Gaston here.
North Gaston's playing good football as far as record is concerned. I don't know.
They beat Bessemer City. They beat Cherryville. Beat Forest View. Yeah, I'm gonna pass on that one. I'll sell.
I got to pass on that one myself.
Yeah.
Or is South Point and Kings Mountain playing this weekend? This week?
North Gaston and Kings Mountain.
Is it? Okay, because I see something here about South Point beats Kings Mountain 31-3, crank up the bus. Now, he says that his dad said something about the kid at Harding. So I'm going to tell you how good that kid was. Who would you think, Jim, college in passing would be one of the best head football coaches that you'd like to have?
For passing?
Name, yeah. So, offensive minded coach, noted for passing.
Oh gosh. I mean, high school. I don't know. I mean,
So when he was coaching at Duke University.
oh, you're talking about not talking about Gold or what's his name? Goldsmith, Fred Goldsmith.
No.
Tommy Knotts.
No. We're talking about back in the 80s, early 80s.
He coached at Duke.
Mm-hmm.
I know Tom Knotts was. I think he wasn't until 2004. That's right.
Yeah, no. This is way. Tom Knotts actually was at Harding during that time.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you just one more, just another chance or two. Think hard.
I remember Ben Bennett was the quarterback back in the early '80s for Duke.
Uh-huh.
Are you talking about his quarterback's coach or the offensive coordinator?
Yeah. So he coached at Florida.
Steve Spurrier.
Coached at there you go.
Yeah.
So Steve Spurrier, when he was at Duke, I remember reading an article in the Charlotte Observer about he visited Harding so often that he needed to pitch a tent at the school. That's how often he was going to Harding to try to get Epley. He saw what was in Epley. Epley played for Coach Harden at Harding, and Coach Harden made the comment that as a high school player, he knew the game as well as he did. That he was truly a coach on the field. He's never seen a quarterback like that in all of his time. Now he did not coach Leak. He did coach against Leak, but that's just a testament to how good was that guy. So we played on the same. He was 2 years younger than me, 2 years younger. But in Optimus, Pop Warner ball, he played on my teams. On my team, he was on 2 years younger. Which, if you understand Pop Warner ball, that's pretty spectacular. Uh, to be on Mighty Mites and you're 2 years younger, you should be down on the JVB1, or we had two JV teams. So you want to be on those teams. And that's just how good that kid was athletically as a young kid. So it's hard for me to pick against him. And I'm going to say that your dad was spot on whenever he talks about how good that kid was. He's but yeah, Bob got the name. I wasn't looking to see. Bob got who it was. I don't know how quickly he got it,
Okay.
but yeah, he said Spurrier, and it was just an amazing element. I don't think we had seen anybody recruit. Of course, in that time frame, I played against a guy in high school who was recruited by Oklahoma, and then we're talking about 1977.
During the Barry Switzer days.
Yeah. So this was 1977. So you had Oklahoma here in Charlotte, North Carolina, recruiting a kid. He was big. Oh my God. Mark Tuck was his name. Huge, huge guy. Mean and nasty. Johnny Evans. You know what?
He was a South Met guy, wasn't he?
Um,
Or Myers Park, one of those two.
yeah, he was pretty good. Yeah.
Which high school did you go to?
South Mac.
You went to South Mac, okay.
Yes, he was pretty good. He was very good. And
he was a good punter and quarterback, if I remember right. Didn't he play both positions?
He did in college.
Yeah.
He certainly did. In fact, he was. He played in the Peach Bowl. I went down to the Peach Bowl to watch him play. Iowa, I think it was, if I remember correctly. But yeah, he was an exceptional punter, actually, very, very good athlete. And Independence had two quarterbacks on their team. Mark May and Chip Ferguson were together, and Chip Ferguson transferred to Spartanburg, South Carolina, so he could play. Ultimately, Mark May went to UNC, and Ferguson went down to Florida State and won a Heisman. We've seen a lot of good quarterbacks in Charlotte, without questions.
I'll tell you, one of the best ones in the state of North Carolina, Roman Gabriel.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I know only a little bit about Roman Gabriel, mainly as a maybe his later college years, but mainly his pro years is what I really remember Roman Gabriel. Bob mentioned Randy Rhino. And Randy Rhino, he played at Olympic High School. Randy Rhino played at South Meck his junior year and then was transferred to Olympic. He played at Olympic the only time that Olympic made it to the state championship game. And the funny thing about Olympic making it to the state championship game, they tied Geringer in the playoffs. And the rule to break a play
Yardage.
a tie was yardage, exactly,
Mhm.
and they had a little more yardage. Now Randy had a tremendous number of yards at South Mac, or excuse me, at Olympic. We know those yards, but I've never been able to get his yardage at South Mecklenburg. But Randy is at the time, and I don't know if this is still true, he was the only three-time All-American to play at Georgia Tech. So he was a three-time All-American, and his brother was very good too.
Mhm.
Randy Rhino was just a phenomenal football player. All of us young kids, because I was in Pop Warner, doing Pop Warner Ball in 1970, we knew who Randy Rhino was. Uh, because he's all you heard about. He was running over everybody every Friday night. Uh, Exceptional ball players. Bob says a tremendous player he was, and he became a doctor. Um, he's retired now, I believe, but he was a doctor in Atlanta, and I'm trying to remember what field it was. It may have been veterinary, but I think it was something else. I was going to reach out to him to try to get his stats. Um, I don't know if you ever heard of him, uh,
I have
Jim, but
not. I have not heard of that. So
he was a phenomenal football player.
I thought we just, for the heck of it, let's look over this week's games. And I'm looking at Max Preps, and believe it or not, they got 43 games scheduled for Thursday. A lot of teams on the eastern part of the state. I'll stop if I see a game that really interests me.
Well, now
East Cleveland.
is this Thursday another? Is this weekend another Jewish
There's a
holiday? Is
there is a
that why they're
holiday.
doing it?
I think the holiday is on either Sunday or Monday. It might be on a Sunday, so it might be a reason why. Kind of like how some schools used to give us off Easter Monday, and other schools would give us off Good Friday. It might be the same type of deal. This is um,
I mean, they
kind
wouldn't be
of,
said that they didn't. There's not an expectation of rain, is there?
I don't think so.
There's a storm off the coast, but I don't know how close it is.
Let's look
I
at
just saw
WRN.
I just saw come up on the radar that there was a system building off the coast, and uh, it could produce a. So they're
Oh, some
showing,
rain showers on Friday.
yeah. So
Let's see
maybe
what.
that's
Overnight cloudy skies and windy with rain appearing likely. Some of the rain could be heavy at times.
so that's maybe why they moved the games to Thursday.
Yeah, that's
I
why.
just briefly saw that go across my news feed this morning about the storm, and they thought it might intensify, but it's not at least it wasn't a hurricane when it came across. I don't think it was. I think it was still just a tropical depression or something
So,
like that.
so some games may actually be moved out to Thursday. It looks like all these games are pretty much the eastern part of the state.
Mm-hmm.
Home's northeastern. Keep an eye out for that. So that's going to be a good game.
Yeah.
Um, let's see here. Just looking down.
Yeah.
New
I'm
Bern,
trying to
Jacksonville.
Newbern. Yeah, there's a good game. I'll take
We'll see.
Newbern.
We'll see how good Princeton is.
Yeah,
If they can
that's
keep
gonna
within three
that'll be
scores, I'll be very impressed.
that'll be a tough ball game, I think. uh, Clinton's good.
You know, Laney Hoggard's going to be a good one. I mean, Hoggard should be favored to win that game, but Laney's not bad. Yeah, let's see here. I've seen some big names.
So 71st got to play Grace Creek, but they should win that
Yes,
ball
should be
game.
no problem with that. Yeah, nothing really to write home. I mean, there's decent games, but
so Southview's 3-1, huh?
yeah, Southview's not bad at all.
How about that?
Southview is a team that really could be honorable mention in the top 8 of the East. So let's look at Friday. Northmore, get this. Northmore beats Northwood like 58 to 22 or something like that. Or no, actually Northmore beats Northwood by maybe 15 points. Northwood, they how did they go here? Hold on a second. I'm trying to figure out. Northwood beats the crap out of Southeastern Alamance, like 50 something to 15 or whatever. And then this last week, Southeast Alamance beats Northmore, a team that beats Northwood, who beats Southeast Alamance like crazy. Southeast Alamance wins that game 33 to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the fun part of sports right there.
Yeah.
Here's a good game. Western Alamance, Eastern Alamance.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Daly Atkins, nothing to watch. Sorry, Atkins.
Who's Dudley playing? Yeah, they're playing Atkins. Yeah. West Forsyth.
West Forsyth, Portland. That could be a decent game. I got to go with West Forsyth, though.
So Brown is playing Lake Norman this week. Pick Lake.
You know, if Brown's going to win, if they want to have a winning season, this is the game that they have to win.
Yeah. I don't know. Their conference is not exceptionally easy, so.
There's your game, West Charlotte, West Mac.
Yeah, that was
lousy football.
So when I was at West Mac, that was our hated rival. Harding was our rival as well, but that's not. I don't expect that to be a competitive game, but I could be wrong. You know, Griner tells me that West Mac's not bad, but I believe the level of football is going to be tremendously different.
Now, if you want to go to a worldwide federation match, Clayton Garner,
yeah,
those are two teams that don't mind mixing it up.
I've been to Garner a couple of times. It's been several decades, but there was some hurricane rained out games, and they played on Mondays, and I happened to be in Raleigh, so I went. I think there was like 3 weeks or 4 weeks. I saw Garner and Southeast Raleigh and Clayton. I saw some good Eastern football. So
Concord Central Cabarrus. We'll see how good Concord is. Mauer Creek, they should go 2-3.
They should go 2-3. Yeah, don't be misled by that. Go back up and look at the Hopewell record though. So don't look at their schedule real quick.
They're 3-1.
Yeah, don't be misled by it. You'll
beat
see
Geringer, beat Berry, beat Harding.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's they haven't.
Exactly.
Nothing's going to write home about.
So that Mauer Creek should.
This game right here, East Forsyth, Davie.
That could be a
Don't
slobber
sleep on
knocker.
Davie.
Yeah, that could be a slobber knocker.
I mean, look at Davie here. They lost to Morrisville by a touchdown. Beat West Rowan, beat North Davison, beat R.J. Reynolds. I mean, West Rowan's down. North Davison is really down. R.J. Reynolds is down.
But they played Mooresville close, and Mooresville's a pretty good team. So
right,
okay,
and this is a home game for Davie,
right?
And
but East Forsyth's a pretty good football team, though. So
yeah,
that'll be
that's going to be a close one, though. I mean, it's hard to go against East Forsyth, but it's
it is
a good one. Hillside, Cardinal Gibbons, Hillside, Torrey Knowles, the head coach. He's the one that was head coach last year at New Bern that won the state championship.
Mm-hmm.
He's struggling right now at Hillside. This is going to be a hard year. Hillside has some drama in the off season. Cardinal Gibbons will more likely win, but Hillside will be good in a year.
Who the heck is Lord Boat Tort?
Yeah, I got to check that one out.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's a Catholic school, but
Yeah, it's out of Virginia.
And what are they? Are they a Catholic? Does it say? Are they a parochial school or?
Let's see here. Doesn't say on here. Let's see, Lord Botator. Okay.
Never heard of this school. If it's a Catholic school, then Olympics going to get spanked.
The school is named for Noburn Berkeley Fourth Baron. No, this is a. This looks like it's a public high school.
Public school named after a former governor, huh? So governor before we were a nation. An appointed king-appointed governor.
Yeah, it's one of those when the nobility had the power.
Right, exactly. Well, I don't know, but that's probably not a game to pick up a win in.
Yeah. Here's a good one. I mean, this is under the radar.
Yeah.
This would be a good one. Independence and Charlotte Catholic.
It's not under my radar. I picked Independence, but it's at Catholic. If I remember correctly, it's at Catholic.
It's at Catholic.
That's a fun place, and that's a tough conference game right there. That's that's one of the games that will help decide the conference champion. That and then the Butler. Those three will be the mix for conference. Be interested to see how well Providence plays Butler. I don't expect. I believe that game's at Butler because I went to it. I went to it last year and it was at Providence. That's the game I'm going to, Jim. Is the Chambers Huff game.
Yeah, I think that might be the best game in the state.
Now, I thought about going to the Ardrey Cuthbertson because I think that'll be a good football game, but I'm going to the Chambers Huff game. Inca and AC Reynolds. I can't believe that Inca would make that a game. But
I don't think he will. Inca's their record is deceptive. They beat Owen the first week of the season, and Owen is one of the weakest 2A teams in the state. Lost to Pisgah, beat Rosman. Rosman is one of the weakest 1A teams in the state.
As many times as I have been to Inca, the town, I've never been to a game there. But I've stayed in Inca. I've hotels in Inca, and I probably spent I don't even want to guess how many days. I had a big customer there.
Now, this one right here is the main dog.
I did not want to pick this game, but it ended up being in our Charlotte Observer picks as well. I picked East Mecklenburg, but what a tough pick this is. The only thing I can say about this game is somebody's going to get a win.
Yeah. Unless the lights go out.
Unless the lights go out. Yeah. It's is that game at Garinger?
It's at Garinger, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I think East Meck might win by 2 or 3 touchdowns easily.
Yeah, what I did is what you just did when I made my pick. And what I did is actually I looked at the preview and I looked at the points allowed and points for, and I said, oh boy, yeah.
Harding's score, Garinger's scored a total of 12 points the whole season.
Exactly. They can't score. And if you look at the points that East Meck has scored. It's their points for
They've had some
while
pretty
they're
competitive games here. I mean, 83 points and
yeah.
allowed 220. I mean,
So
Berry was somewhat competitive. Parkwood was competitive. Rocky River wasn't a blowout by any stretch of the imagination.
right.
Monroe was a blowout, and so was Palisades. But
I'm not going to say the person who said this, but he's a good player that I got to know through Carolina Varsity by watching him play, and we became friends. And he made a comment on Facebook a couple of weeks ago about how horrible the football was at Rocky River. So
I hate that too because Rocky River's really fallen down.
yeah, they have since Coach Fowler left, and it started happening before he left.
No, here I want you to look at this: South Davis and Lexington. At first glance, everybody would pick
I
Lexington.
picked Lexington. Yeah.
I'll probably pick South Davis, and I mean South Davis.
Yeah, you were talking about them earlier.
I mean, look at that. The last two losses, 26-14. South Stanley's not any good, but North Rowan is
North
good.
Rowan, yeah, that's a decent. That's not a bad loss. I'll call it.
Lexington they beat East Davis, and that's nothing to write home about. Now here's a common opponent. They beat South Stanley by 39 points, and South Davidson lost by I think 10. So that's I can see
The
why
preview will actually show you that. Did you know that?
Oh, okay, that's right. Because you can go
if you go look at the preview of the game, then you can see common opponents. You scroll all the way down, and so you'll get things like if there's stats, etc. But then when you get on down below this, you'll get common opponents, and so I use this sometimes as well. It's helpful to see how, as they move through their conference schedule, how each team did against common opponents, and it can maybe start giving you an idea. But what you lack in being able to understand it is to know, is it rushing or passing, so that you can get a gauge on where the strength of the team is.
Right.
And because doing common opponent and just score doesn't tell you the whole picture.
Yeah, it's very one-dimensional.
Exactly. That's not going to be a good game for Stuart Kramer. That'll be a horrible game for them, unfortunately. Grimsley's got Northwest Guilford. I would say Grimsley wins that easily, but I selling Northwest Guilford short. I don't know.
56-0. Let's see. Grimsley beat Southeast.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see. They haven't played.
They haven't played them yet. Exactly.
That Southeast Guilford team, I promise, is a lot better than Western.
And my problem when I look at these, are not my problem, but when I look at those scores, and I'm sure you do the same, if I see a 52-0 and a 52-0 from the other, I don't really draw anything from that other than the team that lost is not good. But by them both scoring the same amount doesn't really mean anything at all, because they both probably could have scored even more. And one may have let off earlier, blah, blah, blah.
Or the opponent kept on throwing the ball and kept on throwing pick sixes,
Yep, exactly. That's the other thing is I got into a little bit of a back channel debate over, it was about the Catholic Providence Day game. And the person was complaining that Catholic is still running and they're not throwing and they're down so many points. And I said, if you can't throw, you don't throw. And it's like, no, when you're down so much, you have to throw. No, if you absolutely can't throw, then you don't throw. You run the ball. You may not be able to score, but at least you're not going to throw a pick six.
Right.
I couldn't get that through his head that if they weren't throwing, so what I was trying to say is they're obviously not throwing for a reason. They know they can't throw. And if they throw, Coach Odo used to say there's only three things that happen when you pass, and two of them are bad:
Right.
an interception or a drop ball. And if you can't throw, then you really bring open the opportunity for interceptions. So anyway, Maiden West
Okay.
Lincoln, look at there. That's
Maiden
this
West
Friday.
Lincoln and Starmount Mount Airy. Look at this one right here.
Yeah, look at there. There's two good ball games right there.
So let's look at this game real quick. Let's look down the preview, see if we got anything. Common opponents. Common opponents 2020. So Fords.
So they both
Both
have
of them.
played Ford.
And let's see by I don't know what that score is because it's cut off.
Yeah,
46-20, 49-20. So I mean it's
similar.
similar.
And
East
then
Burke 36. Let's see what East Burke's. Okay, they haven't played East Burke yet. Okay, I got you.
right.
So let's look at Maiden a little bit.
Off the cuff, you would want to say Maiden, but West Lincoln's having a pretty good year this year, and
Yeah, and is that West Lincoln?
I would pick West Lincoln. That's my pick.
Let's see, West Lincoln. They have a good win right here against Bandy's. That home game, that game could really go either way. I will say one thing though, Maiden, it's hard to pick against them in conference play.
Exactly. That's why I say at first glance you would say Maiden. So that'd be a tough game, but I'm gonna pick West Lincoln, and don't let me down, West Lincoln.
And then you know what? I'm gonna pick Maiden because I'm gonna tell you right now, this is almost a coin flip.
Right.
I mean, this is gonna be a darn good one.
So Gary just chimed in. Gary should join us sometime, and Bob should too. I don't know if Bob's still around, but
I see that Gary thinks his way same way I do. It's
yeah,
and you do too. It's
I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a good football game.
Now look at this one, the Starmount Mount Airy game. I think Mount Airy is going to win. I think they're going to win big. But Mount Airy's they have a great offense, but their defense shuts teams out.
Mm-hmm.
See if there's any common opponents here. Haven't played anybody
not yet.
So let's look at the Starmount. Let's look at Starmount first. They beat Trinity. They beat North Iredell. Beat Forbush. They beat North Wilkesboro. They beat Allegheny. Have they really beaten a team yet that's really somebody that's really shocking? The answer is no.
No. And they've probably beaten teams the way they should.
North Wilkes is a good win. North Iredell kind of surprised me that they were that close.
Yeah, that's what I was just wondering. Is that so? Some of those scores look like what you would expect.
Right.
If you were to be honest and say, I'm going to pick the scores. But that one's a question.
Now look at Mount Airy. This one right here.
Mm-hmm.
58, 49, 56, 49.
Yeah, they've only given up 7 points. And offensively, they are putting points on the board.
And they gave up 7 points to Ashe County in the fourth quarter, probably when they had their
Right.
second, third stringers in.
Exactly. Probably could have shut out if they wanted to shut out.
Yeah. So let's see here. Going down here, Weddington, Dutch Fork.
Yeah, so that I picked Weddington in that game.
Yeah.
Dutch Fork's having a tough season this year. And you hate to say, or you want to say don't count Tommy out, and I would say that too, but I think Tommy's not got the guns this year. That's quite surprising record, actually.
I like what Gary says. I agree with that. Mount Airy should beat Star Mount.
Star Mount easily, yeah.
Yeah, I picked Weddington in that game. Here's one here, Pinecrest, Richmond. There's a lot of people throwing dirt on Richmond's.
Yeah, I don't think
that's going to be right now.
I don't think that game's going to be close, but do you?
I think Richmond's going to be up for this game. I think it's going to be an emotional game. I just don't know if they have enough Jimmy and Joes to keep up with Pinecrest. I think it's going to be a close game for 3 quarters with Pinecrest.
Take a look at how much they've allowed. And that's a lot. That's a lot.
Myers Park here. But you know what? Allowing 33 points to Southern Lee is not a good sign. I mean, Pinecrest is going to win that game. I think it might be closer than expected. I think if anybody was to want to run a favorite, I'd say probably Pinecrest by 24, 25 points. But I think Richmond might keep it within 14.
Okay, so what I was going to say is that if Richmond could keep it to 2 scores, they would be playing very well. Because I think it's a 2 to 3 score game myself. It could be worse. So Providence Day's playing. Let me see that. I thought they were. Yeah, they're playing Christ School this week. Okay. That's a good football team right there, though. Coming up, and I'm going to go to that game, will be when they play Raven Gap. Those are probably the 2 best football teams in the state. Raven Gap and Providence Day. They might.
Raven Gap, is that actually in North Carolina or is it in Georgia?
It's right there at the North Carolina Georgia. It's in Georgia, but it's right there on the line. So they play in the North Carolina Public School Association, NCISAA. Yeah, Fruit of the Loom built a nice modern plant there, and then it got shut down not too long after. One of the best looking textile plants I've ever seen. Highly modernized. So Barry Shuford's got to play Shelby this week.
Yeah, I was going to say you may want to hold off talking to Barry for a week.
I hadn't talked to Barry this year.
Okay.
It's
you can go for another week.
Yeah. I hate that. I used to like communicating with him. We would text back and forth a lot, even when he was at East Mecklenburg. But since he left Charlotte, East Lincoln and Statesville.
I think East Lincoln wins that game. I think by a couple of touchdowns, but I don't know.
Yeah, at the start of the season, I thought Statesville was going to do a little better than what they're doing. Then they up and lost to Lake Norman, and
That's not a bad loss though. Lake Norman's not a bad one.
I
Alexander
know, but
Central is a
they should
little
have
bit of
won
a
that.
game.
They should have won that ball game. The
I mean,
Lake Norman game.
South Iredale is not really that good. North Lincoln is fair to Midland. I mean,
Right.
this is a game that East Lincoln should win.
But you can see that they played close. Like should have beaten Lake Norman. But anyway,
Of course, I will say this: East Lincoln might be a little bit beaten up after that Hickory game.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's Hickory kind of took them to the woodshed.
So let's see. There's games on Saturday. Look at that. Nobody I'd want to go see.
There are two games
There's
on
games
Saturday.
Monday. Nothing I want to see on Monday either. So okay.
There's two games on Monday, so I could go out to Fike. No, it's
Yeah,
not
you
at
can go.
Fike. It's West Johnston.
Yeah, that's over in Benson. Have you ever been to Benson before?
I have actually. That's tobacco country.
Oh,
I remember right.
It is. It's a lot of good farming communities.
Yeah, I've been to Benson. I've not been to a game there, but I've been to Benson. Been through Benson. And I remembered it being a tobacco is what I remember. And in particular, I remember stopping in and I was calling on a customer out that way, and I stopped in an old store, and they were they had information. If I remember correctly, they had information about cigar making and. So anyway, so Gary, if you're still out there, you welcome to join us sometime, guy.
Yeah.
You know this stuff as well as anybody. It's going to be an interesting, I think, week, Jim. I'm going to see some things that'll tell. I will know a few things after Huff and Chambers play that might give a better, and I get to see them. That'll give me the flavor of Mecklenburg County, where Mecklenburg County's at with football.
So what's going on with Boxman? Boxman.
I haven't talked to him in ages. Every once in a while, he'll retweet one of my tweets, but we haven't communicated. He dropped off of Facebook, and I haven't seen him at a game because I don't go to Kannapolis games, and he wasn't going to many Kannapolis games either. So I don't know. I mean, we have not spoken words to each other in probably 2 years.
Don, of course, he has a good historical mind. David Stansel, he's a guy that used to go by, I think it was Sunset Beach.
Yeah,
he's a Concord guy.
Yeah,
and he was within 15.
When I had a whole wiki for him at Carolina Varsity, and he was putting all that Concord information in there. Really good guy, Sunset Beach. Yep. There's so many people. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago when I was telling Langston that this thing that we're doing now after the games, I reminded him of the forums, the Charlotte Observer forums, which were everybody that you mentioned and more were all together. I don't know. Did you ever take part in those? The Charlotte Observer forums?
No, I did not.
This would have been in the 1999 time frame, 98, 97, 2000.
I rarely have ever got on the internet back then. I didn't really get into the internet until the 21st century.
So that's when I came across Chris and Don, Boxman, and Um, the Charlotte Observer forums, they changed them. First, they shut them down, and then they opened them back up. But they opened it back up as a different format. And by that time, uh, Don Callahan, um, he writes for Inside Carolina or one of those recruiting things. He started a website, NCHSfootball.com, and a lot of people went from the Charlotte Observer to it. And then his senior year at UNCC, as he was going into it, he was just having a tough time doing his school and everything else. So I took over NCHSfootball.com, and then he got a deal with Rivals, not Rivals, but Scout, because Rivals is NC Preps, and he got a deal with Scout, and I never did have interest in that, and that's when I started Carolina Varsity. But we all kind of went back to that same. Everybody that you mentioned and more, we all kind of channeled back to the forums. And I was telling Langston that this stuff that we're doing after the games on Twitter, the Twitter Spaces, could become as popular as those forums were. It's pretty interesting, Jim. If you get a chance, check it out.
You just go on Twitter.
Yeah, Langston will tweet out about it, the link to it, and it starts at different times. What he's trying to do now is just start it after the games are over and not do any in-game update stuff. So this past week it was at 10:30. It started at 10:30. So you go into Twitter Spaces, and it's all talk. It's like a call-in show. Um, it's pretty cool. There's like last week, Coach Hales came on. Coach McFadden from Independence, he was there, so we invited him in. So we had Coach Hales on after the his big game, and I don't know. It was pretty cool to catch them. We didn't ask them to come on; they just showed up. They showed up in the list. We saw them there, and it was like, hey, let's get them on. So we got to hear from Coach Hales and Coach McFadden, and of course Coach Griner. Of course, he handled his win marvelously. He was not arrogant. So yeah, Jim, you should join us, and anybody else that may hear this. Langston will tweet out sometime on Friday the link for it, and just be prepared to listen. It's not typing. You're not typing text. You're not doing Twitter messages at each other. It's actual communications, speaking and listening.
So how's was it your talk show? What's it called? Talking Preps. You still do that every week?
Yep. I do. We do it. It airs on Tuesday nights. We film it on Sunday.
Gotcha.
Or Monday. Actually, normally on Monday now. We started out on Sunday. That was a big problem for people. We moved it to Monday. We did a couple of shows on Monday, and then the Panthers played on Monday, so we had to move it back to Sunday. But that doesn't impact you guys. It always airs at Tuesday night. We record it, and then there's a professional intern that puts it all together. Does a very good job. It's a very professional format. What's really funny is that to see that there's some other people copying what we're doing. So flattery, I guess, that's one of the flattery things. We're doing a really good job, though. I'm really impressed with it.
Yeah, I need to check it out. I'll tell you what, during the weekdays, Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday is like crazy for me. I
I
catch up
understand.
on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
So we have some good, there's a coach versus coach, and that's where Grice and Griner. That's one of the more popular segments where they answer three questions, and uh, typically they're supposed to take opposing views. Uh, Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Um, Usually, there's a toss out of questions to a few of us about various topics. I think this last week it was about Hickory Ridge. One of them was about Hickory Ridge and can they still win the conference? Um, and we had a nice little video that some words that were stated and the Mooresville fans were getting all excited about. Uh, there's some good topics, Jim. It's the same kind of stuff we talk about, except for you and I talk about it maybe in more depth and like we're sitting around a table talking.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas we have to get all these various things in an hour. Uh, and there's a lot of different things that we're hitting and doing. So, uh, but I think it's definitely got value. Uh, I enjoy doing it,
That's cool.
and I try to bring some of those ideas here so that we can discuss more. And I've taken some ideas back the other way. Um,
Well, the whole
this,
whole whole time I've been playing with them baseball. For some reason, I just started watching baseball a little bit more these
huh,
days. And I'll tell you what, baseball is actually improving a little bit. Uh, Pitchers are more willing to pitch to pitchers, and hitters are more willing to get up and hit. I
right,
think it has something to do with like the clock right now in the later innings. It's
right.
made it a little bit more fun. But baseball, I think the best years of baseball was probably in the 70s and
The
80s.
seven, no, without question. The,
And
I was a an athletics fan, just absolutely,
oh
loved
yeah, gosh,
Catfish and Vida Blue and all those
Kenny
guys. That was
Holtzman and John Blue Odom and Paul Lindbad and Raleigh Fingers. Who you had third base was Sal Bando, shortstop was Caponera,
Sal
second
Bando.
base was Dickie Green, or I guess it was Green was the big one. That was kind of a rolling around there. First base for a year or two was Epstein. One left field was Jay Rudy. Center field was kind of a rolling circle. One time it was Rick Monday, then it was somebody else. And right field was Reggie Jackson. Catcher, you could either have Fosse or Dave Hamilton,
Mm-hmm.
or you could have the guy that hit the 3 home run or 5 home runs or 4 home runs in the series. It was Fosse that came over from Tenachi. That's what I'm thinking. Gene Tennis.
So see, your memory on that's way better than mine. Way better. I mean,
So
that's awesome, Jim. But that was my team. So I would every morning get the newspaper, to look at the box scores because they're a West Coast team. Uh, I didn't get to listen to them much. Rarely saw them on TV. You'd see them every once in a while. Um, I became an athletics fan because one of my years in Little League, I played on the athletics. So uh, that's what
they're
made me become a fan. I'm like, well, I'll look to the big guys, and
well.
um,
You know what? When you haven't won 50 games this late in the season, you might need to be like thinking about rebuilding a little bit. The
uh-huh.
Athletics are really struggling this year.
Oh, I know. It's nothing like those World Series years, and no,
Yeah.
nothing like it.
Well, for the longest time they had bad ownership with um,
With
you
Oakland,
know
yeah,
Oakland. Yeah, the old Gene or was it Charlie Finley? he was a good owner for a lot of years, and then a bad owner for a lot of years.
Right.
And then after the Gene Haas, or it was a Haas, and I forget how the owners are, Roy Einsart and Haas bought the Athletics. They had a little bit of cash, and then they sold it to a different group, and they don't have cash. It's hard for the Athletics to compete against the Giants right now.
Right.
Well, Dale, I
Yeah.
don't know
So
about you, but my
yeah. So
voice
hold
is
that
almost.
ball. Let me see how you hold the ball.
Well, it depends on how I want to hit, or how I want to pitch. I'm a lefty, and one thing about lefties, we know how to move the ball. Uh, I can, when I was growing up, I could always locate the ball. Always had good movement. Didn't have enough velocity.
Right.
You can do a seamer, you can do a two seamer. Uh, I was never really big onto the breaking pitches. This One of my favorite things was the old circle change, where you check the velocity out of the ball.
Hmm.
If you can know how to change speeds, it makes your fastball look so much faster. And they'll circle change.
Yeah. Part of it is keeping it hidden until. Um,
Yeah, it's
can you
if
can
you
you can you do this? No, 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 no.
are
The
you talking
ball
about
go.
knuckleball?
Yes, sir. There you go.
Well, I actually do it with the I do it with the fingertips, and
Yeah.
if you can do that and release it and get the ball to move, I never had much luck with that.
That ball will move around. Yeah. So you get it up. That ball will move around a lot. Um, Another good pitch is
Forkball.
a underarm sidearm, sidearm
Yeah,
or underarm pitch. That's a tough one because that one comes out of nowhere to the batter. But it's
there's
hard. It's hard on your elbow.
there's two different people. A lot of people think the split finger and the forkball are the same, but they're different to it.
Right.
Uh, Forkball to me doesn't have quite as much movement as the split finger, but it's a little bit faster. The split finger will do all kinds of stuff. It'll drop out of the face of the earth.
Right.
So anyway, a lot of things you can do with a baseball.
There are now. Mainly, I was a catcher. I did pitch a while, but as I got up bigger in little league, I was a catcher. That was
And
my
if
that was my
if you're going to
position.
scuff the ball, you don't have to scuff it by much, believe it or not. If you have a ring or something like that, or have something like that, just do a little bit of it. And the key about doing that is you don't want to cover where you scuff it, believe it or not. You don't want to touch that part there. Let the humidity, let the currents do whatever it needs to do with it. Throw it off there, and just a little bit, believe it or not, just a little bit of movements will make the thing do all kinds of crap you wouldn't believe. Not much on the spitball or Vaseline or anything like that. And when you don't have much velocity, you do all kinds of stuff. The only thing I found out is I couldn't grip the ball, couldn't do squat, couldn't throw as hard enough. And then next thing you know, someone hits a bunch of Vaseline right in your face.
I never encountered anyone using Vaseline, um, but was aware of it, and the
There's certain
spit.
places that an umpire will simply not touch you.
Right, and
No,
spitball. Yes, I've seen that, but Vaseline, no. I heard about it, and of course, I remember it in the big leagues and all. Guy adjusting his hat, brim of his hat, and had his little bit of Vaseline up there, um, but never had to hit one that I know of. Um, I just don't ever remember anybody ever using Vaseline. I do uh, remember several situations where spitballs, you know, the ump was not happy about it either. He He removed the balls, and he removed the play. He removed the pitcher because the pitcher did it. He kept doing it. And he thought he was slick about it, but he wasn't slick about how he was doing it. So
that's why, guys, if you're going to do something like that, use soap. You don't have to. You don't have to, believe it or not, to put a whole lot of soap on that. Just put a little bit of soap in certain areas. The place right below your belt, I guarantee you, the umpire's not going to grab you there. Just act like you're trying to scratch your butt or something like that.
Yeah, adjusting yourself. Yep.
Adjusting yourself. Around. Get a little bit on there. You're going to have moisture. You're going to sweat. Stuff will bubble around a little bit. It's hard to get the dang thing to work right. So what you'll find out is you're going to lose location, and you're not going to really gain all that movement. Best thing is learn how to be a lefty. Lefties, we have natural movement. Lefty cannot move, can't throw the ball straight to save their lives.
Yeah, so that's something for me. I'd have to learn to throw with a left.
Well, Dale, I'm losing my voice, so I better go.
Okay. That's it for me too.
All right, Dale. Listen, everybody, it's good catching up with you, and we'll catch up with you next week. Take care.
Yeah. Before you end it, let's see if there were any. What games will you guys be covering? I think we already mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're good. We'll end
All
it.
right.